Thank you so much, Michael. And that brings us neatly to the end of our discussion. And we'll now open the floor to questions from the audience. So please either raise your hand to be called upon to ask a question to Michael directly, or alternatively, you can enter a question into the chat box and we can read them out from there. I think, yes, I know Zishan, who's the Executive Director at PRISA, had a question he wanted to ask you. So Zishan, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, and thanks, Michael, for providing excellent analysis on the ongoing situation in Iran-Israel conflict and also in the South Asia. My question is more about broader security dynamics in South Asia. Means given that Afghanistan is already facing conflict and there's always a tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan, recent episode of Pakistan and India conflict and Indian, you can say the military conflict with China as well at the border level sometime. So we see that overall the security situation in South Asia is also not good. You already mentioned, so South Asia is exposed to like out of South Asia any kind of conflict, like the geopolitical situation is changing. But also we feel like South Asia inside is also not, it is also more volatile. And do you think, given this situation, the South Asian countries and the governments there, they are also thinking about solving or reducing this vulnerability by going for the regional cooperation and solving such kind of situation? Or do you think they are still hostile to each other and there would be no cooperation in the future?
Yeah, thank you. It's it's a very delicate issue for the region because yes, I think ideally you'd have regional cooperation mechanisms tapped into, but you don't have many of those. As we all know, SARC doesn't really, well, SARC is not a security entity, but SARC, which is the prime regional organization, it doesn't really function very well because of the India-Pakistan problem, and decisions are all made based on unanimity, and India and Pakistan won't agree on much. So instead, I think what we've seen is efforts on bilateral fronts to try to reduce tensions. And I think it is notable, looking at Pakistan specifically, that we did see Pakistan reaching out to Afghanistan, to the Taliban regime there in recent weeks, trying to push for easing tensions. And that happened around the same time that you had that large Pakistani delegation, which included the army chief and the prime minister, going to Iran to meet with leaders. This was not long before the Iran-Israel was everywhere, right? Its border with Afghanistan is hot. Its border with Iran had been hot because of what happened last year, and its border with India is newly hot, so to speak. Well, there's an evergreen hotness there, so to speak. But given the recent conflict, it had been hot. So I think what Pakistan has sought to do is to try to work bilaterally with its neighbors to try to ease tensions to the extent that it can. I think it has succeeded to an extent with Afghanistan for now, with Iran, which is good for Pakistan because the LOC is now extremely hot in ways that it had not been for some years, going back to when the latest LOC truce was concluded in 2021. But beyond that, I don't really see much hope for there to be broader regional efforts to work together to try to reduce these broader disputes, these broader tensions, which in some ways may make sense because a lot of these security tensions play out bilaterally, particularly along borders, right? Whether you're talking about India and China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and going further afield, the increasingly hot Bangladesh, Myanmar border, which is because of the intensifying conflict in Myanmar. These are not issues that would logically be worked out regionally, right? Because they're very different contexts. So in that sense, I think it's helpful when you see these levels of bilateral engagements to the extent that they take place, because that could help lower temperatures a bit. And even going back to India, Pakistan, there's a fragile ceasefire with Israel and Iran. There's a fragile ceasefire with India and Pakistan. There's not much dialogue happening, but the hotline between the Indian and Pakistani militaries, between the GMOs and both sides, it's never closed down. I don't think it's ever closed down in the history of Pakistan and India post 47. So, you do have those engagements between the Indian and Pakistani militaries through the hotline. Hopefully that could keep tensions down as well. Again, it's bilateral, and then it's crises and disputes but beyond the bilateral scope. So I think that's a good thing as well.